first things first, you want to talk about the women's game. There's a lot to talk about in this one. We're going to try to make it quick, but the reffing was horrendous.
Yeah, it was truly terrible. Tanner and I think we spent more time looking at our phones, texting one another about how bad the refereeing was than we actually spent watching the games. Of course, I'm exaggerating, but it was a recurring theme between Tanner and I because we just could not believe at some of the calls that were made in that championship game. But let's go back. Let's just talk about how the teams got there really quickly. LSU went down big to Virginia Tech in the Final Four. The Hokies went on a 20-2 run, had a commanding lead. All of a sudden, LSU opens the fourth quarter on a 16-3 run. Bada bing, bada boom. They never give the lead back. They move on to the national championship game. In the other game, Iowa, they didn't play a box and one. Box and one, you don't see in basketball much. That's when you run a 2-2 zone and one person follows whoever. It's usually the best player. They didn't even do that. They ran a triangle and two. They stuck two players on whoever was the tallest player on the court for South Carolina, and they were dominated on the glass, and miraculously they won. Caitlin Clark was amazing, 41-8-6. That was USC's first loss in well over a year. They had been on a 42-game win streak. So that set up the national championship game between Iowa and LSU. And spoiler alert, this ended up being the most watched women's basketball game, college basketball game of all time. Just under 10 million viewers, 9.9 million. Tanner and I, we did our part. We were two of those 9.9 million. And it was a great game. There was a lot of skill on display, a lot of size, a lot of athleticism, good coaching adjustments because Iowa, I just said they ran a triangle and two. That's not at all how they defended against LSU. We saw what LSU's plan was to reduce the impact of Caitlin Clark. She ended up with 30 points and 8 assists. And as great as she was, she's also a victim of being held to a high standard because of how amazing she is. But she wasn't as impactful as she needed to be for this team to win the game, especially in the second half. But all of that is the context. All of that was just the background stuff. Like Tanner said, the refereeing was the talk of the town during this game. There were travels that weren't called. They called travels on plays that were fine. No infringements of the rules. I saw double dribbles on plays that weren't double dribbles. There were fouls on the wrong players. There were fouls on the wrong teams. I think that bad refereeing, and Tanner, I'm interested to see if you agree with me because I got into a debate with some of the people in my TikTok comments after I posted my review of the game. I said that bad refereeing hurts the trailing team more than the leading team because when I posted this video, a lot of people thought that I was saying, I was an Iowa fan or, I thought it was unfair against Iowa the way the refs performed. The refs were bad for both sides. There were so many instances in which the LSU girls were getting hacked under the basket. But my personal takeaway is bad refereeing hurts the team that's behind more because it disrupts the rhythm. Like we saw in the fourth quarter, Iowa's three best players all had 4 fouls. They were one away from fouling out. So that means they can't really play defense, especially in physical matchups. That was my takeaway. What do you think of that? Do you agree it hurts the team that's behind more?
Yeah, I mean, that Monica girl, the big girl down the paint, and then Caitlin Clark, I mean, neither of them could go all out in that last few minutes of the game. Well, Monica got, thrown out of the game for fouls, but Caitlin Clark, they couldn't do anything because they were in foul trouble, and that was a big issue. By the way, Kim Mulkey was literally she should have been teed 15 times on the sidelines, throwing her hands. She almost friggin' punched the referee on the sidelines. She should have been.
She hit the ref. She
did hit the ref, right? Yeah, she hit the ref. And then you're giving Caitlin Clark a technical for throwing the ball behind her, not saying a word, keeping her mouth shut, just a little frustration there. And then that's 4 foul shots for LSU. Now, they ended up missing 2 of them, I believe, because that was combined with another foul. It was foul city. Here's my take on the game. The referees were terrible. They should be thrown out of NCAA reffing forever, and they should go ref Division III or junior college. But anyways, Grant, you ready for this? It's a big take. LSU, clearly the better team, not even close. With that being said, the refs didn't help Iowa. I think this game could have been a lot closer if the refs would have just called a fair game. But LSU made everything. They were bigger team. They were more physical, and they made every shot from mid-range, the perimeter. They were fantastic.
Yeah, Jasmine Carson was outstanding in the first half, 21 points. And then Alexis Morris brought him home in the second half with 19 of her own. Angel Reese finished the game with 15, 10, 5, and 4 stocks. That's steals plus blocks. I think it's just a shame that, like I said earlier, this was the most watched women's college basketball game of all time. And all we're really talking about is the refs. Those girls deserve better because it was such a good game with such great athletes. And I'm really excited to see what the future holds for these two programs and especially the players on them.